So today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of the Prophet Idris. Now, this isn't just some historical account. It's a truly epic tale of wisdom, courage, and a mysterious, divine destiny that you have to hear to believe.
And really, this one verse from the Quran is the key to his entire story. It tells us he was truthful, a prophet, but then it ends with this powerful, kind of mysterious phrase, "We raised him to a high place." So what does that actually mean? Well, we're going to find out.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get to know the man himself. Then we'll get into this dramatic conflict he had with a tyrant. After that, we'll see the divine intervention that followed, the pretty terrible consequences of injustice, and finally, we'll unpack the meaning of being raised to that high place.
All right, let's jump right in. Who exactly was the Prophet Idris?
Well, for starters, he was an ancestor of the prophet Noah, which puts him way back in that foundational prophetic line. He's also known as Akuduna in the Torah. And what's really fascinating is his name, Idris. It's connected to the idea of diligent study, which tells you a lot about his dedication to understanding and teaching divine wisdom.
And get this, his pursuit of knowledge wasn't just spiritual. The man was a pioneer in so many fields. I mean, think about it. He's said to be the very first person to ever write with a quill pen. He was a skilled tailor, he studied astrology, he excelled at math. The texts even give us this physical description of him, a man with a broad chest who walked with these short, deliberate steps. It really paints a picture of someone who was both a powerful thinker and had a strong presence.
But you know, at the end of the day, his core mission was spiritual. He called everyone to worship the one true creator. And he wasn't alone. He built this community of really dedicated followers who believed in his message. So he was a builder of knowledge, but also a builder of community.
But, as you can probably guess, when you have a message of faith and justice, it's bound to clash with worldly power. And that brings us to this incredibly dramatic confrontation, the oppressive king's crime.
Okay, so this is where we meet our main players. On one side, you've got King Idris. He's oppressive, greedy, and has all the power. And on the other side, a simple believer, devout, principled, with a family he needs to support. It's really that classic story, tyranny versus integrity.
So here's how it all starts. The king is out traveling, and he sees this beautiful piece of green land. And of course, he wants it. The only problem is, it belongs to that pious believer. And when the king tries to buy it, the man refuses. He says his family needs the land more than the king does. I mean, talk about a direct, principled stand against absolute power.
The king goes back to his palace totally fuming, and this is where his wife, the queen, steps in. And honestly, her words here are just chilling. She says she'll use a logical argument to get him the land. But as we're about to find out, her idea of logic is completely corrupt and violent. This was never about reason. It was about inventing a fake justification for a crime.
And just like that, her twisted plan works. The queen gets some false witnesses, the believer is unjustly sentenced to death, and the king gets his land. A grave injustice has been committed, and an innocent life has been taken, all because of greed.
But an act like that, it doesn't go unnoticed. And this brings us to Section 3, the divine warning. This is where heaven responds to the crime on earth.
So God reveals a message to Idris, and his job is to deliver it directly to the king. And there's no sugarcoating it. It is a terrifying promise of what's coming. Vengeance for the man who was killed, the end of the king's power, the total destruction of his city, and a truly gruesome fate for the queen. The warning could not be more clear or more severe.
So how does the king react to this divine ultimatum? With humility? Maybe some repentance? Nope, not at all. His response is pure defiance. Instead of listening to the warning, he threatens to kill the messenger, the Prophet Idris himself. And in doing that, he basically seals his own fate and the fate of his entire kingdom.
Well, the king has made his choice, and now the consequences are coming. This is vengeance from above.
In this downfall, it is swift and it is systematic. First, Idris and his followers are told to get out of the city. Then the punishment begins, and it happens exactly as foretold. The king is killed, the queen meets her prophesied end, devoured by wild dogs. Divine justice is served. But the punishment doesn't stop with them. It spreads to the entire land.
Just think about that number, 20. For 20 years, not one single drop of rain fell on that land.
Can you even imagine the scale of that devastation? It's a punishment of epic proportions, and it turns what was once a majestic kingdom into a completely barren wasteland.
So the result of all this? Total, absolute desolation. The city was left in ruins. The people were living in misery, forced to go to neighboring cities just to beg for food and water. The entire civilization ended up paying the price for their king's crime.
But in the middle of all this devastation, what happened to the Prophet Idris? Well, this brings us to our final section, where we explore his unique and mysterious fate, being raised to a high place.
Okay, so this brings us full circle, right back to that powerful phrase from the beginning. What does high place actually mean? Well, scholars have two main interpretations. One is metaphorical. It refers to his high rank and status among all the prophets. The other is literal. It refers to his actual physical ascension into the heavens.
And you know, the tradition goes even deeper on this. Some scholars believe he was raised all the way to the sixth heaven. Others say his soul was taken somewhere between the fourth and fifth heavens. It's this incredible act of divine honor that puts him in this really special category. And he's often compared in rank to the prophet Jesus, who also had a divine ascension.
So at the end of the day, the story of Idris is about a scholar, a leader, and a man of principle who was not afraid to speak truth to power. His reward wasn't wealth or land, but an elevation beyond this world entirely. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. What does his journey, from confronting a tyrant on earth to being raised to the heavens, tell us about the deep connection between our faith, our integrity, and the consequences, both seen and unseen, that always follow?